Howdy! We've got some footage here from two different dives. The first one we shot down kind of the main section of cave here and popped over to the left side and went up to the Siphon Tunnel, which is a neat passage. It's a siphon because the water's pulling you into the cave instead of most of this passage where the water's pushing you out. And then we shot back and around the double lines area, kind of came back through a couple other passages that I didn't feel like scribbling. And that was like 230 minutes or so. On the second dive, we went down here to the wonderful tunnel and the white room, and then back out through these big passages up to the double domes area and back around with a couple other little connections in there. So footage from those two, I tried to pick out some of the more interesting stuff and figure I'll just talk through it. So first up is us coming in an area called the park bench using a zoom machine, and then this is one of the temporary lines that we installed to connect two lines to get to some of those side passages, and this is one of those side passages. And quite a lot of this stuff is in lower passage, so it looks pretty small from a shot like this, but you can see there's tons of space below these guys and even a little space above them. So that gives you enough room to kind of slowly move through, just like they're doing here. The point is just to meander, and then eventually you get to spots like this, which are a little bit bigger. You can see there's some cool craggly looking rocks. And at the back of this room, there's this little space between. I think that's what they wrote the song about, actually. But we go through the space between and end up in some more passage. And right here you can see a little arrow that's pointing to the way out. It says 1500 on it. That's how many feet of swimming to get out. And those arrows are periodic. So right now we're swimming on the way out through this kind of windy serpentine passage, which is neat. It's a little bit bigger than where we were before. And as we come out, we end up where we installed the temporary line. So we're removing that. That just connects two lines, so that way if we couldn't see, we can get out. And it's not all rocks. This used to be a seabed, so there's a fossilized sand dollar, I guess. I'm not really familiar with how inflation works, but those things are all over the place. And there's even like some whale vertebrae that you can see, and shark's teeth, and whatever that is. I think that's just rock that looks funny. Kind of looks like petrified wood sitting there on the floor that's dropped down from the ceiling at some point. And keep shooping around this area. And we end up getting to a pretty cool spot here. You can see this is just like a small tunnel in the wall. And then on the other side, there's a small tunnel on the floor-ish, and then a small tunnel all the way at the ceiling. And they both go to the same room, so this is a fun spot to kind of roller coaster up and down. It's just really weird how the cave looks like that. I'm sure a geologist would be able to tell me why, but I'd like to just pretend that it's nature's way of making roller coasters. But at the end, you go through this little duck under, and you can see you just kind of shoop through it. It's a smaller spot, but it's not very difficult. I've always had the motto that if you can selfie there, it's not difficult. So, yeah, that's a very clear selfie. So, shoop through that area and get into some very different looking cave. You can see how there's kind of like a false floor there, a floor that fell through, that I think is cool. And this spot, which is a pretty low section, very green water in here too. It's got some weird flat rocks on the floor that had come down at some point. But that's pretty much it for small stuff. This is the larger section of cave, so you can see that light way off in the distance. It's really, really hard to light up these rooms. I mean, these are like airplane-sized rooms. I don't know why I chose an airplane. They're underwater. It's very far from the environment of an airplane, but you get the idea. These just very, very big. So this guy does a little flyby here and gives you an estimate of how large this space is. But that's it for the diving, and you can see we spent 189 minutes, and we got to stay at 20 feet for 6 more minutes, and 30 minutes till we hit the surface. There's a little more that goes into it than that, but to pass the time sitting there for an hour or so, we usually just write notes to each other about dinner or dating or something like that. And then once you've cleared all that decompression, you come out here and it's really pretty. It's pretty inside and outside the cave. And saw that guy on the way out. Some kind of turtle. Probably a cave turtle. And breaking the surface after about 4 hours. Boop.